Hi, my name is Lynn Wunderlich. I'm a farm advisor with the University of California Cooperative Extension in the Central Sierra region. I cover the foothill counties of El Dorado, Amador, Calaveras, and Tuolumne. And I work with a number of small growers there, growing a great diversity of crops, including apples, pears, peaches, plums, cherries, olives for oil, wine grapes, and Christmas trees. The goal of my Farm Advisor program is to conduct local research and deliver research-based information from the UC campuses to my growers in order for them to farm sustainably in an environmentally sound and economically viable manner. And the focus of my program is integrated pest management. An important component of a true IPM program is monitoring, or what we refer to as field scouting. Now, to a layperson, this might seem like an obvious thing, that we need to go out there and look to see what's out in the field before we can make a decision on whether we need to act on it or not. But good monitoring actually requires a lot of time, a lot of skill, training, and personnel. And it's not as obvious as you might think. You have to know how to identify the pest. You have to know how to separate it from its natural enemies and from lookalikes. We have to know the life cycle of the pest. Insects and other organisms, like fungi, other pests, even weeds, change during their life stages. An insect might go from an egg to a larva to an adult moth, and we have to know what it looks like in all those different stages to be able to monitor for it. You have to know where the pest is on the plant. Is it on a leaf? Is it on a branch? Is it on the roots? Is it flying around? Maybe you need to have a trap in order to see the pest. In order to trap the pest, you have to have a lure to attract the pest. You have to know what kind of bait it might be attracted to. You need to cover enough ground in the orchard to get a good sample size, and this might be unpleasant. It could be hot, it could be dusty, it could be time-consuming to do this work. And then you have to take good records. You have to write your monitoring information down and keep it for record keeping so that you can use that information to make a decision and know whether your intervention, your management technique worked or not. We also use weather in integrated pest management, and the way weather is used is to forecast pest damages or times when pests might be active. So you can think of diseases, fungi, bacteria often need a rain event or a period of wetness before we see disease erupt. And we have models to predict periods of disease based on weather. Likewise, we have models to predict the life cycle of insects, when that insect is going to be developing in the stage that might be most susceptible to a spray, when the egg is hatched, when the larvae are out there moving before they enter the apple or piece of fruit, that's the time to put an application on or to intervene with some kind of management techniques. And so our degree day models, which are physiological time, different than real time. So this means that takes into account that insects are cold-blooded, and that the warmer it is, the faster they grow, the colder it is, the slower they grow. So degree day modeling in physiological time is a tool, a successful tool used by integrated pest management. The Food Quality Protection Act of 1996 was a federal act that required the reevaluation of pesticides currently on the market, and resulted in removal of what I consider many of the old school type of pesticides. These are the organophosphates and carbamate classes of materials that are largely broad spectrum in nature, meaning they kill pretty much everything that's out there. and had worked very well for many years. However, there were issues and concerns about human and environmental risks. So with the Food Quality Protection Act, many of these materials were canceled. And I remember thinking at the time that this was a chance, an opportunity for biological control and natural enemies to become a greater component of IPM programs, that we were going to see a shift perhaps. Instead, we had sort of a reaction by pesticide companies to do their research and development in developing new classes of pesticides. And many of these are biologically based materials, so it was a fantastic thing that happened. Now we have all these other materials on the market that are safer to use. They are safer for humans and in some cases safer for the environment. But an unintended consequence of that is that we see that a lot of these materials are still very toxic to our natural enemies, our good bugs that are out there. And those are the ladybird beetles, the ladybug, the poster child of biological control, our green lacewings, our syrphid flies, our beneficial thrips, and what I think of as the unsung heroes of biological control, the parasitoids. The parasitoids are tiny wasps. You can't see them, but they oviposit in their hosts. They lay their eggs. The host dies as the eggs and the larvae of the parasitoids mature, and then the little tiny wasps emerge. And what's so great about parasitoids is that they're very specific for their target pest. And so they're wonderful natural enemies that we have out there, a whole slew of them. So now we have these newer materials that are also, we're finding, toxic to our natural enemies. So I think one of the challenges that we're facing with IPM today is how do we encourage and incorporate biological control in a manner that's economically feasible for a grower. And I think there's still a lot of work to be done there. The other thing about our new biologically based materials is that for a grower they can be more difficult to use. They're more specific, which is a good thing, but that means that they require better timing, often better coverage, and so more information is needed to properly use our new classes of pesticides. They're safer for humans, so they're great. The growers like them because they don't have to suit up as much. They can get back into their fields sooner. They can harvest them without these long pre-harvest intervals. So these new classes of pesticides have been a wonderful thing, but they also require good information, good coverage to use in many cases. So in talking about these newer classes of pesticides that are on the market, largely because of the implementation of the Food Quality Protection Act and the removal of the old school pesticides, we now have more information-intensive pest management systems. And we need to know when to time these materials in order to use them appropriately. And for example, some of these classes of materials are insect growth regulators. They're great materials because they are safer to use and they interrupt the molting of the insect. So they're effective at killing the insect by not allowing it to move from one stage to the next in its life cycle. But you have to time it. That means you have to, again, go back to that basic monitoring information and know, when is that insect molting? When is it in a stage when it's susceptible to an insect growth regulator? And so that means that the grower has to be out there, again, collecting good information in order to use these newer materials. So in summary, integrated pest management involves a lot of different management techniques, implementing management techniques based mainly on monitoring information. So it's a data-intensive way to farm. And it incorporates, IPM incorporates biological, horticultural, ecological, meteorological science, and wraps it all into one package in order to farm sustainably. I think we hear a lot about sustainability today. It's a big buzzword, but IPM is really the root of sustainability. And I thank you for this opportunity to talk.